the world's tallest twin buildings and one of the most famous Hindu shrines in the world are located in one city that basically means Muddy River Confluence. Charming, right? Hello Internet, welcome to Lex Universe. So, we are continuing in this series of my travel guides where I want to tell you my experiences from places that I visited in the past, that I may visit in the future, but most importantly, I want to give you all the information that you may need if you want to visit in the future. If you're interested in other travel guides that I have already produced, you can check the playlist on my channel, but in this case we will talk about the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, which is one of the main tourist hubs in the Southeastern Asia. So if you're interested in that, and that's why you click on this video, I suppose, then let me show you my intro and let's dive in. So let's start with some basic info about Kuala Lumpur and Malaysia, of which it is the capital city. Malaysia, as many of you know, is located in Southeastern Asia. It's divided into two parts: the peninsular Malaysia, which borders with Thailand to the north, and across the Strait of Johor with the city-state of Singapore, and across the Strait of Malacca with Indonesia. By the way, Strait of Malacca is actually one of the most important choke points on the international naval cargo lines. It's not important for the tourists, but just find it interesting. I like these geographic fun facts. Sue me. Anyway, the other part of Malaysia is located on the island of Borneo, which it shares with two other countries, Brunei and Indonesia, making it the only world's island that is shared with three countries. Like I said, Kuala Lumpur is the capital of Malaysia. It's the seat of its king, or I'm not even trying to pronounce his official title, but you can see it on the screen. It's located in the peninsular Malaysia, and well, now let's talk about the city itself. Let's start with some basic facts that you may find handy. The official language is Malay, also known as Bahasa Malay, which is basically mutually intelligible with the Indonesian language, and there are just some very small differences. Basically, if you speak one, you speak the other. But also English is quite widely understood. In Kuala Lumpur there are quite a lot of expats living, so you may hear other languages. Many people speak Tamil or Chinese because there are numerous minority populations of these nations. The official currency is the Malay ringgit. They use the type G or the British plug outlet. They usually don't flush the toilet paper, or well, if there is a toilet paper they flush it, but usually you don't get it. There is this thing, like this faucet or bidet shower that you may use to do your, I don't want to say anal hygiene, but you know what I mean. That's what you will find in many places, but if you're accommodated in a hotel you will find toilet paper and you can flush it all the way you want. But just keep in mind, if you, for example, I went to the McDonald's and there was no toilet paper, so I couldn't do my business because I cannot use this watery thing. Although it's, I don't want to get I don't want to get into it. Anyway, they drive on the left side of the road because they are a former British colony. Very well, now you know the basic info about Kuala Lumpur. All you have to do is to get in. Malaysia has actually kind of a good visa policy. Many countries around the world, including the European Union and the United States, have up to 30-day visa-free access. The most common way how to get to Kuala Lumpur is to fly there. The Kuala Lumpur International Airport has two terminals. By the way, the airport is, for the locals, usually known as KLIA, which I will now pronounce Klia because I don't want to break my tongue. And there are two terminals. They are officially or even unofficially called Klia 1 and Klia 2. The main terminal, Klia 1, is the older building and it houses most of the airlines. The Klia 2 is a newer one and it's mostly served by AirAsia and other local carriers. Speaking of AirAsia, they have actually their main hub here in Kuala Lumpur, and if you know anything about traveling in Southeastern Asian countries, it is that the best budget flight tickets you can get with AirAsia. So basically any kind of transportation within Southeastern Asia goes through Kuala Lumpur, which makes it a great regional and also international hub. Now, if you want to get from the airport, you have several options. There are trains which will take you to the central station within the downtown of Kuala Lumpur for 55 ringgit. In this case, there are two types. There are the Clear Express and Clear Transit trains. The express ones actually do not stop anywhere except for the two terminals and the central train station. The transit trains do have several stops on the way. They cost the same, so if you really want to get downtown, pick the express one. But if your accommodation is located somewhere on the way, your better option is the transit one. The difference in the travel time is around 10 minutes, so it's nothing horrible, even if you cannot get to one. But keep in mind that if you buy the ticket, it's only valid for the type of train that you want to travel with. Speaking about the trains, the thing is, when I arrived to Kuala Lumpur, I realized that you can get the official taxi from the airport for 80 ringgit, which means that if there is two of you, it already pays off to go by taxi no matter what. So eventually there was two of us, so we ended up going by a taxi. When I stick with the trains, one thing, the terminals are actually not very close to each other. It's like 2 kilometers, so if you want to get from one terminal to the other, your best bet is to go by this train, and it costs 2 ringgit. Now, if you arrive to the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, they will take your fingerprints at the immigration. So if that's something you have a problem with, or you don't have fingers, that's not very politically correct. Anyway, keep that in mind. Also, if you are departing from Clear 2, the important thing is there is quite a long walk, like 20 minutes, from the immigration or from the security check to the immigration. So allow yourself a lot of time, because first you will probably spend a lot of time at the immigration taking your fingerprints and all the thing, and also then you will just have to walk quite a long distance to get to the security, and then also to get to the gate. So allow yourself a lot of time. The security check for international flights are what you're used to, but if you're flying domestically, you can actually bring up to 1.5 liters of water aboard the plane, which it's really surprising, but I guess for the domestic flights there are not the same requirements as for the international ones. Also, if you don't want to go by a taxi or by the train and you want to save up some money, you can go by bus. It will also take you to the central station, and it costs 12 ringgit for one way and 80 ringgit for return ticket. The problem with the Kuala Lumpur International Airport is that there are basically no connections that are going overnight, by which I mean from let's say 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So if you need to go to the airport at that time, your only option is taxi. I will talk a little bit how to get a kind of a cheap taxi in Kuala Lumpur a little bit later. Now, flying in is not your only option how to get to Kuala Lumpur. You can arrive by bus. There are actually some international bus connections, well, not right now, but they will be in the future, and they have been in the past, which go from Hat Yai in Thailand and also from Singapore. But it doesn't have to be the only option. There are bus connections to all of the cities and towns in the peninsular Malaysia. There are several bus terminals in Kuala Lumpur. On the north side, there is the Bersepadu Selatan terminal, which serves most connections to the north from Kuala Lumpur, and it basically serves like the main hub for the long distance bus connections. The Hantian Duta terminal is located to the south of the city, and it serves not that many bus connections, but there are some lines, and basically for the connections that go to the south, including some of the lines to Singapore. Also, many of these, let's say, like luxury buses or first-class bus connections that do exist, that go internationally, they do not depart from these terminals. They have their own private bus stops at hotels and other establishments all around the city. So if you book something on this, always check where it departs from, because it doesn't have to be from the terminal. In most cases, it really won't be. Your next possibility how to get to Kuala Lumpur is by train. The train connections in Malaysia are actually kind of good. I mean, when you compare it to the rest of Asia, excluding China, it's really good. There are some overnight trains that go to Hat Yai in Thailand and also to Singapore. Most of the trains depart from the central station, and I will talk about it a little bit when I talk about how to get around the city. But before I do, let me mention one other thing. How you can get to Kuala Lumpur is you can drive. If you are used to driving left and you have a lot of patience with traffic jams, well, you can go to Kuala Lumpur by road. You can check my video from Bangkok, because these two cities are actually quite comparable in many ways. The traffic in Kuala Lumpur, at least from my experience, is not as horrible as it is in Bangkok, but it's still an Asian city, and well, if you know anything about traffic in the Asian city, it's hell. So if you choose to do that, now you have arrived to Kuala Lumpur. You probably want to get around, right? Well, you can walk, but the city is quite large, so I wouldn't recommend it. Not to mention, it's not really pedestrian friendly. I spent like 10 or 15 minutes waiting at the traffic lights. So if you are lucky enough that there is a pedestrian crossing and there is a traffic light, you will spend a lot of time waiting and waiting and waiting. So you probably want to use the public transportation, because in compare with a lot of southeastern cities, the public transportation in Kuala Lumpur is surprisingly good. They have their own metro. It's not a metro, it's actually above the ground almost all the time. It's called LRT or MRT, and also they have a monorail, which makes Kuala Lumpur one of the few cities around the world where you can actually ride a monorail. Anyway, this kind of transportation is kind of reliable. They have 5 lines. The monorail actually goes only around the so-called Golden Triangle, which is the central portion of the city. The prices go up from 1 ringgit. They depend on the distance, and you buy these tokens from the vending machines and at almost all of the stations. You will always choose, well, you will not choose the point of origin because you will be there, but you will always choose your destination, and it will tell you the price after that. They only accept banknotes up to 5 ringgit, so keep it in mind. But there is always like this guy in this booth that will give you change if you don't have it. Also, the rapid transport in Kuala Lumpur has improved a lot in the past few years. So right now it's possible to buy these tickets online. I will give you the link in the description below, but you can see it also now on the screen. And that's on this website. You can buy the tickets for basically any train line in Malaysia, including the commuter trains in Kuala Lumpur. These trains are actually quite comfortable, really. Again, in comparison with the Asian standards, but again, also for Europe. Come on, how can I be such a prick? I'm sorry, Kuala Lumpur, I don't mean it in a very bad way. Anyway, they are air conditioned, which is very good, because the weather will be horrible. You will be sweating all the time. I'm doing it right now and I'm not even in Kuala Lumpur anyway. So it's very warm. Also, you can get this car, which is called Touch and Go card, which will give you, we will top it up with some money, and then you'll be just able to buy the ticket with your card from the machines, and it's a lot more comfortable, it's a lot more reliable, and well, basically everything. Also, you can consider buying this thing called Travel Pass, which will allow you to use the public transportation within Kuala Lumpur for 2 days unlimited, which may be handy if you travel to Kuala Lumpur for a shorter time. Because let's be clear, it's just one city. I don't think you want to spend there a week, or maybe you do, but you know, there's not so much to do there. If you want to travel to some places where there is no connection with the commuter train, you can use the bus network. It's quite efficient. They have kind of upgraded it in the past few years, so it's kind of good, but well, consider the traffic, and also not all of the buses are air conditioned. And third thing, you might probably not even need it, because almost everything that you want to see in Kuala Lumpur is accessible by the train anyway. Now, and your last option how to get around Kuala Lumpur is by taxi, which you will have to haggle, you know the drill. But there is a tip for me, and that's the app called Grab. I already mentioned it in the video about Bangkok, and it's pretty much the same thing here. The locals use it because it's cheaper, it's more convenient and more reliable. It works basically like Uber, which doesn't exist in Kuala Lumpur or in Malaysia, but as you can see, Grab, pretty much the same thing. There are so many apps that work like Uber and work in different countries around the world. Kind of interesting. By the way, Grab actually originated from Malaysia, which makes Malaysia home to two of the main budget travel tools in Southeast Asia: AirAsia, the airline, and Grab. Thank you, Kuala Lumpur. Now let's talk about food, because that's one of the most amazing things that you can do in Kuala Lumpur. You can eat. You should eat, otherwise you will die. So if you come to Kuala Lumpur, eat. If you really want to enjoy the local cuisine, you need to get some of the street foods. That's a thing that is well recommended in the whole of Southeastern Asia. But the thing about Kuala Lumpur is it's kind of a mix of a lot of cultures. The Malay food is probably not that famous as Thai or Chinese, but it's really interesting. Among some things that you may want to taste in Kuala Lumpur is satay, laksa, and nasi lemak. Your best bet where to go if you want to enjoy some of the street food is the Jalan Alor Street, which is located just within the Golden Triangle, not that far from the Petronas Towers. And this is the place where you just stroll down and there is something to eat at every corner. And it's like really amazing. You can get there basically anything you want. And most of the dishes are really tasty, and you can enjoy this amazing cheap food paradise in Southeastern Asia firsthand. When it comes to drinks, keep in mind that Malaysia is actually a majority Muslim country, so while it's not forbidden in any shape or form, alcohol is actually quite expensive there. Well, not expensive for, I don't know, like Icelandic standards, but for Southeastern Asia, where in Cambodia you can get a beer for $50, this is a lot more expensive. A lot more, like twice expensive, but still. But one thing that I need to mention when I talk about Kuala Lumpur is one thing why I always want to return to this city. I've had there the best, the most tasty milkshake in my life from coconut. It was, God, I'm just having orgasm just talking about it. It was amazing. Head out to the Chinatown, check it out, taste it out. It's not a word, but you know. Now I cannot think about anything else. I need a break. So those were some of the general tips about Kuala Lumpur. Now let's talk about why you want to go there. Probably the most iconic structure for Kuala Lumpur are the Petronas Towers and the KLCC. What is the KLCC? It's basically just this shopping mall that's located in the ground levels of the towers. But let's talk about the towers, because they are the symbol of Kuala Lumpur. They are the tallest twin towers in the world. With the 88 stores and 400 meters, they are stunning. I mean, you can see the pictures, but when you're standing in front of them, underneath them, it's such a cool feeling, you know. And there are not so many so high buildings there, so they really stand out. Also located nearby, there is this park, which may come handy because you can freshen up there a little bit and you can hide in the shade, which is always good in the tropical zones. Not to mention, the park is the perfect place where you can get some of the most beautiful pictures of the Petronas Towers. You can also take the elevator up to the tower and go to the 170 meters high iconic bridge between the towers, where is the observation platform. The only downside of this observation platform is that you cannot actually see the Petronas Towers. Which brings me to the KL Tower. It's located a little bit further from them, and it's also pretty tall. And if you go up there, you will have the great view of the whole of Kuala Lumpur, including the Petronas Towers. Just check it out. Probably my most favorite place that you can visit in Kuala Lumpur, and that's very cool because, you know, it really looks from all the postcards like this modern metropolis, which it is, but there are some historical places, and one of them is the Batu Caves. For me, it's my most favorite Hindu place around the world. It's this shrine located in the cave, really high up the mountain, where you have to take all these steps up there. Which, by the way, in the tropical weather, it's really not an easy chore. But one thing about this is there are a lot of monkeys that live there, and they just like move around you, and so don't touch them. I wanted to pet one because I was stupid and young and unafraid. I almost started singing, I'm sorry. Anyway, it didn't end up well because the monkey got pissed and I got scared, and now you can see the picture how I looked. Don't pet the monkeys. If you want to go to Batu Caves, you can get one of the MRT lines and you will go to the final station, which is called Batu Caves. Not very difficult, it costs like 4 ringgit from the central station, very easy. The next place on my list is Sultan Abdul Samad building on the Merdeka Square, which used to be the house of the British administration of the Malaysia, but now it's home of the Ministry of Tourism. Not important. Anyway, it's this great example of the colonial architecture in Malaysia, and well, it's definitely worth visiting. Not to mention, really close to this building, you can go to the banks of the Klang River, and there is kind of a great panorama view of the whole center of Kuala Lumpur. You can take a great picture, like you can see on my screen right now. So I was really cool back then. I'll see yourself. Like I mentioned, Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia are actually a country with the Muslim majority, so there are some famous mosques in Kuala Lumpur. I would here stress out 2 of them because they are really cool. First, there is the Masjid Negara, which is the national mosque, very modern, really cool looking. I think it's like the largest mosque in Malaysia, but if I'm lying, then I don't know, stone me or what. And then there is the Sultan Abdul Samad Jamat Mosque that is located directly on the confluence of the 2 rivers. One of them is the Klang, the other one I don't know. But anyway, that's the confluence that actually gave the city its name. And the mosque is actually really beautiful, and it gives you an idea of what the Islamic architecture looks like in Southeastern Asia, which is completely different from what you can see on the Middle East. One other thing that you can visit is the Chinatown. This where the Chinese minority lives, and while there are a lot of street foods as well, I would really recommend you the Central Market, where you can buy some souvenirs on some other things. Like for example, I bought this amazing Boeing 747 there for like, I don't know, $5, and it's been on my cabinet ever since. So that's the Chinatown for you. And that would be it about Kuala Lumpur. If you have any more questions about the city, leave them in the comment below. If you would agree with me or disagree with me about anything I said, also say it in the comments down below. I will gladly read it and respond to any of your input about this guide. You know, there are many comparisons between Bangkok and Kuala Lumpur. All are considered like these cheap budget travelers hubs in Southeastern Asia. While I personally probably prefer Bangkok a little bit more, Kuala Lumpur is still a great place that is worth visiting. If you ever want to go to Malaysia, fly via Kuala Lumpur and allow yourself a day or 2 to visit this place. The Batu Caves are really cool, although they, according to, to my opinion, they really fucked up with all the cars on the stairs. It looks like a Luna Park. Weird. Anyway, getting off track. Anyway, Kuala Lumpur is a great, bustling metropolis full of many cultural influences from around the world, It's really worth visiting, and I hope I hyped you up enough for visiting it when it's possible. So in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a like, comment something in the comment section down below, subscribe to my channel if you like my content. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you'll not miss any of the future videos. Check out my other social media, and see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.